Today's scholars, Wayne Clemens. So, good morning. I'm very excited for our fourth lecture of our four-part lecture series is here today, and he has a great lecture planned for you. I want to introduce Dr. Katz from Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
Good, and you?
Fine, thank you. So how was Dr. Chandar yesterday?
It was good.
Good?
I learned about epilepsy.
Good. That's what he was talking about. Good. So what did you think of his acting out of those seizures?
Oh, no, that was
Scary. Scary.
Scary.
Right? Scary.
Somebody just do that in front of you.
Well, if I ever had a neurologic problem, he's the guy I'd go to. How are the medical students?
Which one?
All of them. All right? Good. All right, so I think we ought to test the medical students. It's a shame they're not here, but I think we ought to give them a test to see how well they did. So I like to test the teacher by testing the students. Got quiet all of a sudden. You notice that? I like to test the teacher by testing the students. All right, question number one. What's a neuron? That thing on the board.
Am I right?
Well, you're right.
Oh!
So what's a neuron? And? What's a neuron? Yes, it has to do with nerves. Okay, good. Okay, there's 100 billion of them. They make up nerves. That's true, but what is a neuron? Okay, it has something to do with electrical signals, that's correct. But what is a neuron? I'm looking for a definition. What is a neuron? Or a nerve cell, right, is another word for a neuron. Okay. See, if you can't come up with a good answer, I'm going to have to get back to those medical students and look at, I have to wonder if they ought to become doctors, All right, so make them look good. Come on, make them look good. What's a neuron?
It says impulses to the rest of the body to control the function.
Okay, it sends impulses to the rest of the body. That's true. Very good. So what I'm looking for when I ask a question like this, when I'm looking for a definition, I'm looking for something like this. A neuron is a cell, right? Can everyone agree a neuron is a cell?
Yeah.
Okay, but there are lots of cells, right? Lots of different kinds of cells. There's skin cells, they're muscle cells, they're blood cells. A neuron is a cell, so then the next step is what's special about this kind of cell? So what's special about nerve cells? So we've heard some, they send impulses. They send impulses. So what's special about nerve cells? Yes. They help the body function, but all cells do that, right? So we're asking, what's special about nerve cells?
They send messages to you from the brain.
They send messages to and from the brain, yes. So what's that special electrical thing they do? What's that called? Action potentials, right? Remember that? So the impulses, so what's special about nerve cells, different from most other cells, is they create action potentials, which those are the electrical impulses that they use to communicate from one part of the body to the other. So if I was asked, what is a nerve cell? What is a neuron? I would say, a neuron is a cell in the nervous system which is specialized to send impulses, electrical impulses called action potentials, from one point to another in the body. Okay? So a nerve cell is a cell that's specialized to send impulses called action potentials Throughout the brain and from one part of the body to another. Okay. All right. Well, the medical students did okay on that one. We'll give you an okay. What's a synapse? Okay, very good. She said, is that where they talk to each other? So can someone answer her question?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So that describes what synapses do, but if I were to ask you again, what's the definition of a synapse? What would you say?
Transformation of.
What is a synapse?
When one nerve cell sends information to another nerve cell. It's the same thing.
Okay, that's what you said. Okay, so all of these are sort of around the right answer. But when I ask a question, what is a synapse? I'm looking for a description of a synapse, not what it does. What is a synapse? Just like I asked, what is a neuron? And we said the definition of neuron is it is a cell with these characteristics. What is a synapse? A synapse is what? So you said a synapse is a message going from one cell to the other. Well, the synapse is where the message travels. So what I'm looking for is something like this. A synapse is the place where one nerve cell communicates with another nerve cell across a space. Okay? So here's one nerve cell. We're going to talk about this in detail in a minute. Here's another nerve cell, and here's the space where one communicates with the other. So that space and what the first neuron and the second neuron and the space between them, that's the synapse. Okay? So think about this. When someone asks you a question, what is an X? Think about how to answer that question. An X is dot, 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 dot. Okay?
Cross two lines.
So a synapse is the place where one neuron communicates with another neuron across a gap. Okay? That's important because it means there's nothing physical connecting them here, so something has to happen in order for them to communicate. Okay, so the name of this lecture is Neurons, Snakes, Ropes, and Synapses. What's that all about? We're going to find out. Any questions so far? Any questions about what a neuron is? Any question about what a synapse is? A neuron is a cell in the brain specialized to send impulses called action potentials from one point to another. A synapse is a gap between two neurons where one cell communicates with the other cell. Okay. Question? Okay. Would someone like to, what is your name? Jonathan. Would someone like to answer Jonathan's question now that you've heard it?
This question.
Repeat your question, Jonathan.
What is a neuron?
What is a neuron? What is your name? Malik.
A neuron is a cell that creates action potential from one point to another. I think that's what I'm saying.
Pretty good. Pretty good. A neuron is a cell in the nervous system which creates impulses called action potentials to communicate from one point to another. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. All right. Now we're going to go back in time for a moment. We're going to go to ancient India, centuries ago. There's a philosophy that developed in India called Vedanta. You don't need to write that down. And one of the teachings of this philosophy is, the world is as you see it. The world is as you see it. Another way to say that might be, you create your own reality. Now, this is a question that philosophers have struggled with for centuries. And modern neuroscience actually struggles with the same question. But if you were a student centuries ago in India, you were a student at a school of Vedanta philosophy, a teacher there might tell you the following story. Listen very carefully. There's one word in this story that holds the key to the story, and I'm going to ask you what that is later. Okay? So here's what your teacher might be teaching you. There was a nervous little man walking down a road in his village. And all of a sudden, he started screaming and shouting, "There's a snake! There's a snake! There's a big poisonous snake in the road! Everybody, quick, come running!" All the villagers came running and came with sticks and knives. And they came rushing up to the man and they said, "Oh, you silly man." And they looked at the road where he was pointing and shouting and screaming and jumping up and down, and they said, "You silly man. That's not a big poisonous snake. That's a what? It's a rodent." Oh, he was so relieved. It wasn't a poisonous snake. He was so relieved that out of deep breath, he leaned up against a tree and grabbed a branch.
No.
And that was a snake. And it bit him.
That's fine.
Okay. A nervous little man walking down a road in his village started screaming and shouting. What's the key word? Why did he see this rope and call it a snake? What's the key word? Nervous. Okay. Why do you think nervous is the key word?
Because the whole point of the story, if he wasn't nervous, he wouldn't have mistaken the rope for a snake.
Okay. Very good. Does everyone agree that that's the key word?
Yes.
Okay, so why would the fact that you're nervous, which is something sort of inside, right? Why would the fact that you're nervous cause your perception to be mistaken? Can you think of any situations in which your emotional state caused you to make a mistaken judgment?
Yes.
Yeah? What?
Well, after I had seen paranormal activity, and I was paranoid to walk around my house and stuff.
Okay, so something scared you enough that after that you were walking scared. Something else.
Like doing something I'm supposed to, and then you always think, oh, when my mom's coming,
You always hear something.
Right, so you're always thinking, someone's going to catch me. Okay, any other? These are all good examples. So your emotional state, like this man in the story, colors perception. So we're going to look at how that happens. Okay? So modern neurobiologists, neuroscientists, neurologists actually use that same story of mistaking a rope for a snake to explain how the brain works, to create perception. We're going to come back to this in a little while. But I want to talk a little more about neurons and synapses. Okay? So you learned about neurons and synapses from the medical students, right? Okay, so you can tell that this is a nerve cell, I hope.
Yes.
Otherwise, I failed as an artist. Okay? One nerve cell. What's this here?
Yeah.
Nucleus. What's this?
Say a lot.
So good. What are these?
The dendrites.
Dendrites. Very, very good. Excellent. Medical student's grade is going up. Okay, what's this long thing here? Axon. Good. And what's at the end of the axon?
No, that's what they say.
Axon terminal. Okay. So this one I've blown up out of proportion to the rest of the cell because we're going to look at what's inside. Okay, very, very good. Cell body, axon, axon terminal. What is this that I've drawn wrapping around the axon?
Myelin sheath.
Myelin sheath, very good. What's the purpose of the myelin sheath?
It protects the current.
Someone who hasn't spoken, what's the purpose of the myelin sheath? Yes?
It protected nerve fiber.
Protects nerve fiber, and what does it do for action potentials to have a myelin sheath? Okay. What does it do for a nerve if it has a myelin sheath? The action potentials go faster, right? Okay. Very good. So this is the presynaptic neuron because it's before the synapse. This is the postsynaptic neuron. It has all the same parts. And here, I just blew up a part of the dendrite so we could look at it in more detail. Okay. So this is where the business is, right? If there's no communication from this cell to this cell, then no information is going to travel anywhere, right? So if I make a decision up here in my brain and want to kick my right foot if the